Let me ask you something. Who decided astrology was evil, but astronomy was science? Who decided the zodiac was pagan, but the Bible was pure? And why do so many of us never question that? Because today we are. Welcome back to the Holier podcast. Before we get into it, quick note. If you're watching this episode on YouTube, my guest has chosen to remain anonymous. For privacy and personal reasons, she won't be showing her face, but trust me, what she has to say speaks for itself. Now, today's episode is not for the comfortable, it's for the curious, the skeptical, the people who have started to feel like something doesn't quite add up. I'm sitting down with Indy, author, researcher, and enthusiast who's been digging into something most churches will never touch: the connection between the Bible, the Zodiac, ancient texts like the Epic of Gilgamesh, and historical records like Josephus. And here's the thing: once you start seeing the parallels, you cannot unsee them. So now the question becomes, were we misinformed? Was information left out? Or were we just never meant to look this closely? We're talking astrology, astronomy, deconstruction, suppressed knowledge, and the stories that existed long before the Bible as we know it. So if you've ever questioned what you were taught or felt like there's more beneath the surface, yeah, this episode's for you. So let's get started. If the zodiac is actually embedded in the Bible, why has it been hidden or ignored for so long?
Good question. It's actually mentioned in the Bible. Mazzaroth is the word, and I, of course, am not prepared with the chapter and verse, but if we looked up the word, it is in the Bible, and that is the mention of the zodiac. And there's a lot of, I don't know who necessarily on purpose hid it, except for the fact that we are definitely talking about at least two different tribes of people all throughout the entire story, where one of them there's a lot of difference between them, but they're constantly arguing, they're battling their brothers. Brothers in the same tribe are breaking up and taking people over there. We have Jacob and Esau. Probably they don't believe the same at the end of the day. It just keeps happening. So one of the groups is certainly against anything pagan, but clearly the Israelites definitely were not only aware, but into worshiping several other gods. And a lot of what they're doing and worshiping is zodiac stuff. So one group is saying, no, no, we don't worship cows, let's say. We only follow Yahweh, or whatever the argument is. So I think it's a group is saying, stay away from it, and we only do this, but it's not completely out of the Bible. And then we have editors and councils and things that want to give church power and make people believe other stuff and not look at the sky and know their secrets, because this is about like a zodiac priest cult. Pretty much that's what they did. That was their secret trick. Is the king had a zodiac priest, and he would tell him when to plant his crops and when a flood was coming and when seasons, or if a meteor happened, what sign, what happened shortly after. There's this, they were always looking at the sky. But
Yeah, and it's always interesting to me, like, why isn't it taught? What is not even necessarily like I think when I hear the word zodiac, my mind automatically goes to, and again, this is just because of my upbringing in a pastor's home and in the independent fundamental Baptist church movement, is when I hear the word zodiac, my mind automatically goes to new age, demonic, horoscope, don't touch it, don't go near it, it's bad, all negative things, right? Um,
yes,
but I think there's a misconception of that. And I think that, like you and I talked yesterday over the phone, where we talked about just even like the star that led the wise men to Jesus. And my dad would always preach that that was an angel. Well, it didn't say it was an angel, it said it was a star. And in the Bible, where it says angel, it says angel. It doesn't say star. Now, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. I am fully able to admit if I'm wrong about something, but I understand it to be a star. And my dad would say, well, it says the star stood over where the child was. Okay. I mean, I guess you could argue that point, but what always
I
made
think it
me,
was a constellation, actually. When that constellation rose in the vernal equinox or the zodiac shift, that was their sign that a king would be born. And I think Babylon has a prophecy about the star
Mhm.
that one of the descendants of Abraham would come and defeat their king or something. So watch for this sign. I don't think it's an angel or a traveling floating star that magically stops or rests. You know what I mean? There's
Yeah.
obviously some coding going on here.
Right, exactly. And so I think it's like they want to have their cake and eat it too, right? They want to say, well, it says star, but it actually means angel. But then they say sometimes they'll say you have to take the Bible literally. You have to take it
I saw
literally. And I'm
I
like,
saw the funniest TikTok. I'm going to show it to you later, but it was this girl, she's ex-Mormon, and she's saying how people do exactly that. They're like, "Let me show you what the Book of Mormon says. It says prophets cannot deceive you, but they are human and sometimes they are wrong. Now you might think this means they can't deceive you." And she
yeah,
goes on like, it doesn't mean what it says. You have to read it different than it's written. Let me over explain that.
yeah,
Let me apologetic that for you.
mhm,
And it means, and yeah, it's
yeah,
crazy. But
it
they do
is
it even in
crazy.
the Bible. There's groups in the Bible and people and little, and they don't make a big deal out of the story, but it is in there where they do conjuring. They go to visit a psychic medium who talks to dead people. And
Mhm,
actually, they're bringing people back from the dead
correct.
and you can call it the laying on of hands, but it's actually Reiki because that's energy healing. And that would have been what Jesus was into because he would have been more Zoroastrian, more of a Babylonian Jew type.
Yeah,
With yeah, and so again, it's like one group in the Bible. We've chose to attach ourselves to the Israelites as presented as the victims chased out of Egypt, and we decided that we are them too. And it
yes.
kind of helps our focus not look at the all the other groups being talked about, the Canaanites, the Philistines, the all of them. What did they believe? What were they worshiping? And but in our own Bible, they are definitely the Israelites got in trouble for making cakes to the Queen of Heaven. They were worshiping the Queen of Heaven. As soon as they get out of Egypt, they build a golden cow. They're worshiping the bull.
Mhm.
There, Moses was fighting bull worshippers. He destroyed several of them that day, I think. Joseph and his brothers, when they come into Egypt, he tells his brothers, "Don't tell the Pharaoh that we work with sheep, that we are shepherds. Tell him that we have worked with cattle, us and our fathers." And
What is the
there's
reason for that, you think?
so I think the reason is not because Egypt has a problem with shepherds. They had their own shepherds. They definitely did not have an aversion to anything like that. So I think it's Zodiac speak. I think Joseph is telling his brothers to tell Pharaoh that we are worshiping the bull, not we're not shepherds, sheep worshippers, which comes in right after the bull worship, and that's Aries, like you. So so he's telling them at that time in the what they don't tell us in the Bible, at that time the worship was probably changing because the zodiac changed. And that's what they do. That's why later on you have the Lamb of God and the Fisher of Men and the man carrying a pitcher of water. These are all zodiac speak.
Yeah, and explain that. So, Lamb of God, that would be Aries, right?
Yeah.
And then you have the
So
Fisher of Men is Pisces.
So if we start, can I start back in the beginning?
Ab-
Because the way that it started unfolding for me clearly was by not learning the Epic of Gilgamesh, but learning about it.
Mhm.
Um, it's
Which
the
you and I
oldest,
talked about for a second yesterday too,
yes,
because I am not very familiar with that story because we were never taught it. It
No, you
was,
wouldn't be.
we were
It's
never taught that.
Babylonian. It's it has nothing to do with. However, it happened before the Bible, and that's what they want you to ignore. So then Adam and Eve can't be the first people, and it kind of wrecks their story if you think something was written earlier than in the beginning.
Mhm.
Um, so with the Epic of Gilgamesh, the story that I have read the epic, I've glossed it, let's say. I've looked through it on purpose for certain things, and what it turns out to be, what it says it is it's a story about Gilgamesh, the king, chasing the bull of heaven. And he needs to kill or slay this bull. It's bull slaying, and there's a lot of adventures and things that they go through. There's seven Pleiades, or whom I forget the name, whom Bobby or Herm, I forget what they're called, but it's seven of them are around the neck of the bull, and he's got to fight with them and do things. And anyway, and it's a weird long story. There's all kinds of things that go on. I can explain more of them, but we're not doing the whole epic. But the idea is, what I found out is, and some people know this, but not many, that the story is actually about the constellations, and it's Orion chasing Taurus as it falls, and the next constellation comes in. So when the bull of heaven falls, and then you can see that reflected in Egypt. There would have been a bunch of bull and cow. They have big Taurus burials, and all of that is falling away now. So those statues get removed, and all of a sudden you see either ram or sheep or goat statues around coming in, because that's how they worship, with the changing of what was happening in the sky. So they went from bull worship, which today, and then it also sometimes caused a civil war, because not everybody got it, and not everybody they were different religions and different beliefs. And when you've been worshiping the cow, and so did your ancestors and their ancestors and their ancestors, when someone comes along and tells you you can't do that anymore, to this day, there are still people that will starve to death before they eat the cows sitting next to them, because it's considered holy. It's a god.
Sacred.
So sacred is the word, right?
Mhm.
And that comes from that.
Okay. And that's very interesting to me. I think that it should beg the question, why hasn't the school system or churches taught astronomy and even astrology? Like why has this been suppressed from mainstream society? I mean, if I asked any of my friends, I mean, I think most people would be like, oh, there's the Big Dipper, and there's the Little Dipper, and there's Polaris, and there's Orion's Belt. You could maybe point those out, but in general, to be able to read the sky like they used to way back in the day for thousands of years, people aren't
Yeah.
doing that anymore. I
No,
mean,
well, they didn't have the internet. They had nothing better to do than stare at the sky and make mud bricks. So what are they going to do?
right. But why was this knowledge suppressed?
Right. So I think at this point, I don't feel like my pastor or your pastor or anybody was being purposely deceitful and hiding what he knew and you don't. I'm not entirely sure what the Pope even knows. If he would have known in Chicago what they tell him when he gets there, or I don't know what's divulged up high, but I somewhere along the line they're not teaching it like in theology seminary, right? Like,
Right.
so I'm pretty sure Justin went to some kind of school theology. Did he? Did Justin?
Justin, okay, so you're talking about Justin from the deconstruction zone, if anyone
Yes.
is wondering. But, and I had Justin on to talk about the history of the King James Bible a few episodes prior to this one. If you're listening, go check that one out because it was really interesting. But yeah, Justin, he went to he's got several different degrees. Yes, he went to seminary and all of that.
And so you would have to ask him, what are they actually shoveling in those places these days? But what I've seen by looking at some different Yale courses, or looking up what are they teaching in these institutes of higher education that are theological, Harvard was, these are supposed to be teaching the priesthood actually, but At this point, I think they've talked themselves into so many circles that they're talking themselves out of what they once knew. So ask Justin if they're teaching anything about the zodiac in any of this theology seminary, except just not to look at it. But I think like my priest, if not my priest or my pastor, would not have known if I went to him today and said, "Did you know that's what Joseph was saying to his brother?" He would. I don't think they know. So it's not being passed down. So I don't feel like it's being taught widely. So then it's not going to filter into the churches because it's not in the seminaries. And then it's who does know and where does the knowledge stop? Is it I don't know. Is it a Freemason thing? They don't know. In fact, let me tell you this: 99% of the people at your local lodge don't know what they're doing at all, as far as how far back this goes and what the ceremonies mean really. And but it's all I can say is it had to be some kind of power pull somewhere along the line. You
Sure.
not knowing this gave me more power. Yeah. So, like, did NASA want to be the only ones looking at the sky? And so we're not allowed to? I mean, I don't know exactly when this
Absolutely. I
happened.
mean, that's where my brain goes. It's like
Yeah, we're not even
somebody,
allowed. I can't build a rocket ship and go browse around if I want. Only they
right,
can. They marketed it. So how
right.
far back does it go to where they said we don't do that? And again, it's because we might be following the wrong tribe. In fact, if we looked at some pagan texts or other religions, we very well would be reading stars and signs and
Hmm.
different
But
things.
again, when they've demonized it though, and made it like, oh, you shouldn't be reading the stars. That's demonic. I mean, I know I heard that growing up. The zodiac is demonic. Why would you even mess with a horoscope? Why would you even look at astrology? Why would you even be interested in astronomy? Those things were suppressed, I think,
I think it
too.
probably comes from Yahweh, actually, because here we have this usurper God in a pantheon of other gods. He's not the only God. He's not the supreme God. He's not the God of all gods. He's not the creator God. He's not, and we can see this in Deuteronomy when a bigger God gives Yahweh his portion, and his portion is Israel. And from that point on, Yahweh starts absorbing the attributes of the other gods and the other deities and the other storm and whatever attributes they have, they're his all of a sudden. He even had a wife. She goes away. Now he's male and female, or there is no male and female.
Right.
So he probably did a lot of the don't look up, look. We don't read the stars. We go to the one who created them type of vibes.
Mm-hmm.
I can't think of a place where I could nail that down in the Bible, but probably somewhere in there it was telling them. And so because we follow that, we're Israelites. We act like we. I don't know how we got attached. 2,000 years later, and all of a sudden I was in the Exodus, and everything's about. I'm an Israelite.
Yeah,
Uh,
I can tell you what my theory is on that.
tell
So
me.
because Israel is quote God's chosen people, right? And then when
Uh,
a person gets saved or born again, they become a child of God. And so then they become part of that lineage, that family, and so they just consider themselves like adopted Jews, like
kind
legitimately. That's what they
yeah,
think. I've been
right.
adopted into this Jewish family and now I'm a Jew. They're not, most of them that I know aren't practicing Jews, but they will come hell or high water. It doesn't matter what Israel can do or does. They are going to support it and
Oh
back it
yeah, we're
100%
doing
no
it
matter
today.
what.
Yeah, our
Israel could start sacrificing children and they would be like, there must be a good reason. It's fine.
yeah,
We're going to
people already
support
think they
because
did. People think they started already, and they're like, and we're
but
like,
I'm
yeah.
saying is the whole like giving Israel carte blanche to do whatever. It almost makes me think that Israel slash the Jews had something to do with all of this
Well, right.
because
So by design, they are the victims. They are God's chosen people. They are the group that the mean Pharaoh chased out of Egypt, and they were slaves there. And then the 40 years of wandering, and then trying to just land somewhere, and then just, oh my God, victimized again, and then victimized again. And then they couldn't take all the land. And then They couldn't always obey God, and there wasn't barely two good kings amongst them that God was pleased with.
Yeah.
So they've always been the victim that God will bring back and save and give and do and
And then
restore.
there's
And
that, but there's that parallel too that Christians use, that you're speaking a parallel, right? Everything that you're saying, the Jews screw up, God gives them a way to come back. And then the Jews screw up again and God, it's back and forth. It's just like Christianity. We screw up every day and God just accepts us and he
yeah,
loves us
it,
and forgives us. It's the same thing. It's like,
yes.
it's like the
No, you're a
magic.
dirty, filthy. I've heard your mouth. You're a sinner. I'm just
Right?
teasing. But
Yes.
yeah,
Sometimes I do have a little bit of a trucker mouth. Sometimes I get worked up about things. I'm telling you
no, it's
what.
me. I'm working hard to not use all my F words today. Uh,
You know what? I will say this, okay? So I have a friend who told me that one of her relatives, who happens to be an older person, listens to the podcast. This is shocking to me because when I picture the listeners, I think of a certain demographic. It is not that demographic. But I was very pleased to find this out because I'm like, this is amazing. I have like a wide range of audience and I love that.
yeah.
This person was offended that I used some expletives in a certain
Oh,
episode. So I have since and moving forward bleeped out the expletives.
oh goodness.
So
Okay. All
I will
right.
go
That's
ahead, and if
accommodating.
you want to say whatever you want to say, Indy, if you want to be totally unfiltered, I will just bleep it out. It's no big
Can
deal.
we hear the bleep though? Is it a noise? An
It
audible
is an
bleep?
actual audio beep. Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
I'm
You'll be
gonna
able to
throw
hear
some out there then.
beep. Yes. Yeah.
Now, what you just said, how accommodating and graceful you were in that situation, is kind of the line in the sand where I'm at now, personally. As part of my own deconstruction, I've decided that I am not tiptoeing around people who are trying to give me rules and how to speak and what
Mhm.
exactly profanity is and what exactly using the Lord's name in vain is.
That's a
The
whole
word,
nother subject right
well,
there.
for real, like the words
Yeah.
I use today weren't around, so they're not even on the list of things I can't say. But I've come to the point where I'm not like personally. I would have said F off
Yeah.
if someone said I didn't like you saying that,
Yeah.
because I've been behavior modified my whole life because of that religion,
Yeah.
and I'm all done now. The second half is going to be better, and it's going to be up to me what I say and how I dress. And unfortunately, I'm a little old now to dress how I wanted to dress when they wouldn't let me dress that way, but
It's okay. You still can.
I
It's
I
fine.
wish purity culture had not hit me so hard, but yeah, so that it was nice of you to do that, but and we don't want to be a foul mouth, I guess.
Hey, you know what? They actually say that people who do say the F word are a little bit more intelligent. There's
I know that it
studies
lowers my blood pressure.
studies have been done, so it's
You know,
fine.
they talked. Do they think that Jesus was hanging around with a bunch of fishermen and Sakai? You know what Sakai are?
No.
They're knife wielding stabbers that go into crowds and stab people with little knives very quickly. Uh,
Oh my gosh.
they these are his friends. This is Judas is a Sakai. They're fishermen and Sakai and all the outcasts, and this is who you think they were talking pleasantly to each other. Even Paul says, "I wish who was ever troubling you of circumcision would cut the whole thing off."
Mm,
So he's basically saying, "Cut your piece off," without
yeah,
saying it, but they talked harshly. They spoke harshly to each other.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I this is kind of on the subject, off the subject, but we have this vision that has been handed to us of what Jesus looked like, right? So you
Hmm.
picture this white guy with blue eyes and long brown hair and a beard. And
Hmm.
I just think to myself, I this is where my mind goes. They didn't have dentists back then, you guys. He probably had like most of his teeth were probably gone. He didn't have blue eyes. He would have had brown skin. Like why are we painting this false picture of what the reality was. I mean, for God's sakes, George Washington had wooden teeth because they didn't have dentistry back 250 years ago. You think they had it back 2000 years ago? I think of just the weirdest things when it comes to stuff like that. But I'm just like, this image that has been portrayed. If you were to see Jesus, if you were to transport yourself 2000 years back, everyone probably had BO. They probably all stunk. They didn't have wash machines. They were washing their stuff in the same river that their animals were bathing in and hanging out in and pooping and peeing in. You know what I'm saying? Like, there is not a accurate people. I don't think people have even thought about that. Maybe they have. Maybe they're just as twisted
Well,
and
what I
weird
can
as
tell
I
you, I can tell you, I've never really seriously thought about their teeth as much as I just did.
I
I
mean, think
really
about
did.
it. Have you ever walked up to somebody who had really bad breath and like half their teeth are missing? The other ones that they have, the one or two teeth they have are brown and they're about to fall out. This is what I picture. And I'm like, we have, he would probably be not somebody that y'all would be walking up to and wanting to be like, heal me, do this, do that. You know what I'm saying? Like, he probably was like a monk type of person, like somebody that just wasn't attractive. We've made him into this like what's the guy that used to be on Highway to Heaven? Michael Landon. We like to look like a Michael Landon character. It's
That's
like
Jesus. That is Jesus.
or even the guy that they have portraying him on The Chosen. He's a good-looking guy. I just don't think that it's accurate. And I think that when you step back and just take like you're in school and your teacher, this was so satisfying to me when the teacher would take erase the chalkboard with the eraser and just everything would get nice and clean, and then she would wash it. Remember when it would be washed? Take your paradigm of what you think Jesus looked like, smelled like, his breath, all of that, and just take it and throw it right out the window, because I guarantee you it was quite the opposite. And the people he was hanging around, they're going to be right there, like same kind of caliber. It's like the caliber of people he was hanging out with were a rough crowd. That's what I'm trying to say. It wasn't, and I think that is one of the reasons why he was calling out these holier than thou, again, those people, the Sadducees, the Pharisees. He was calling them out constantly because they had propped themselves way up here on this pedestal, and he was calling them out. You're the vipers. You're the ones with the whited sepulchers. You're the ones,
Mhm.
it's the people who are real. But again, and I'm going on this like little rabbit trail, but I feel like you and I could talk about that just because I've never told anyone that other than I think maybe David and my husband. But it's like this picture that's been painted of him, I don't think is accurate at all. Like Leonardo da Vinci or Michelangelo or somebody back in the day that had depicted what they thought, and maybe based on a king or a prince or something in that day so that they could kind of like canonize the person in power at the time to make them think, well, yeah, they're just like Jesus, or this is what I picture them being like, the king that we have or the prince that
I'm
we have.
of the opinion that they know his lineage, that they know that he was married and that he did have children, and that they could trace as far back or forward as they want. And the names that we're looking for in the histories are not going to be found because Jesus Christ is not a name, it's a title. You're not
Mm-hmm.
going to find
Right.
Jesus Christ in any outside writings because only the Bible calls him that.
Mm-hmm.
um,
And
Pretty much.
that's an interesting rabbit trail we could go down too. I think that no matter what color he really was, he probably had bad dental hygiene. I'm just saying. I've
Probably.
thought
I never thought
this
about it.
this is what I think about. I
I,
don't
I
know.
have thought about their feet and the sandals and how dirty and like
And the
the
BO, they all stunk. I
yeah,
guarantee you they
yeah.
all
Well, I
stunk.
mean, they had remedies. They had ointments and aloes and oils
Sure.
and perfumes, and that's what the incense and perfumes and nard oils were for. Is the rich people smelled good at least?
Sure. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank God I wasn't back then. I mean,
Ooh,
yeah, I am serious about dental hygiene. It's just, it's very important.
it is
Um,
important.
I don't even know how we got on that, but I just thought
Well,
about it
because
and I
we
was
want to
like,
know if Jesus, why does Jesus have teeth in all the drawings is now a good question. Like, does he? He's not really smiling, is he? Is he smiling in those
well, look
pictures?
at all look at all these pictures from even back in like the 1800s, early 1900s, where all these people, it's black and white pictures, nobody's smiling. And I
Yeah.
remember asking, it was either my mom or my grandmother, and it was kind of like, well, duh, they didn't have teeth. They didn't smile because they didn't have teeth, or their teeth were rotted. They were bad. They didn't have the dentist and the hygiene that we do now. And I'm just
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh. Well, that's where my mind goes, guys. Sorry. I'm sorry. I'm not
I
being
was,
blasphemous or whatever. I'm just saying I think about this stuff. And I think my mind goes to where we just talked about, like, who created this image of him that we all literally think that he looks like this image, and I don't think it's accurate. I'm just saying.
well, okay, but I'm just saying in those images, I don't think his teeth are showing, and so we don't know if he's not smiling because he is toothless. It might be that he is toothless, but still good looking with long flowing brown hair.
As long as he doesn't smile. Oh my gosh.
He probably would have
Okay.
had long hair if he was part of the Nazarene. He's
Yeah,
called a
no.
Nazarene, and
Yeah,
he's
and I
called
agree with
he's
that.
called a Galilean.
Yeah,
These people would have taken Nazarite vows, um, which partly includes not cutting your hair.
correct.
So
Which
who
is
knows?
always that's another thing too, just like as a side note, is like when I grew up in the IFB, the boys had to have and men they're not allowed to have long hair. You're not allowed to
Yeah,
have
well,
long
that's from
hair. It's
Paul. Paul thinks a boy should have short hair
short hair and then no beard.
because those are
I
barbarians. Barbarians had beards and long hair. The
but
word
Jesus had a
barbarian means
beard.
bearded. So Paul and Jesus are the opposite religion, like I noticed the guy saying in your last episode.
But you should, I don't know if you had a chance to look at the comments from the reels that I did on those, but oh my gosh, it is people they'll just go nuts if you say anything about the Apostle Paul. They go nuts. They're more passionate and angry about us suggesting that Paul was another gospel than they are about anything that has been said about Jesus. Nothing. It's not even comparable. It's
It's really
wild.
hard to find out that you're wrong and admit it or even acknowledge or look into it at all. Once you have a foundation of sorts, to look is scary, first of all. And then to fall or to have the rug ripped out from under you, like it's, it can cause some anger and lashing out. And they don't want to think that that could ever happen to them, which is partly why they have their mantra of if you can leave us, you were never one of us, or you want to leave because you want to sin, or like they have to make sure that they don't have a thought process that you just learned something that made you think twice, and they have to think is something bad or you're evil or your thoughts are. They'll pray for you because clearly you're off.
Yeah,
Yeah,
whatever they have to do or say to make themselves feel better
it
is what
can't
they're going
happen
to
to
do.
them. And I think it makes them angry. In fact, that I see that a lot in the deconstruction community and it actually bugs me so much. I know a couple of these guys, and I say guys because I see it more in the men than I do the women. Like they're a little more pissed off that this happened to them. So they deconstruct, and then their mission is to go back and bash Christians and go pick out videos and mock how stupid they are and what liars they are, and you'll defend anything and you'll say this and I can't believe you actually believe that, and you're this and that. All of it is I can't believe you this, and when I'm hearing them, a lot of these guys I met when they were still Bible believing Yahwists. Like they were Christians when I met them. They have recently deconstructed in the past 4 years, maybe five,
Mhm.
and now they're looking back telling people how stupid they were for believing what they believed
Mhm.
just a minute ago, like yesterday. I
Yeah.
was in the room when some of them stopped believing. And did I say, oh my God, you were so stupid for believing that? Oh my God. That's not how I brought them out. I didn't go, oh my God, how could you think that your marriage is any good when, or
Mm.
I don't look back to bash. I actually have grace and compassion for the people who are still believing because I am not that far out myself. I was a believer more of my life than I wasn't. If someone like me had come along and told me some things, I had every catchphrase necessary to build a wall around myself to where they were wrong, I was right, the Bible is true. They left because A, B, or C, and we'll just go pray for them and good luck out in the world. It has to. So I think that anger, and that's why they fight in the comments. I think I'm the one that actually made the comments about Paul and Jesus in that stream on your video. They just can't take it, so they have to fight it to the death, whether it
Yeah.
makes sense or is logical or anything. At
Yeah.
that point, they're not even thinking about it anymore. They know what they're supposed to say and they say it.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's that brainwashing. It's they're going to listen to whatever their pastor's telling them, whatever they were taught, whatever their parents, grandparents, aunt, uncle, whatever, however they were raised. They just want to keep that going because that would just be like the cognitive dissonance would be too hard for them to handle. A lot of them, I think. And then again, then once you start deconstructing, a lot of people have kind of a existential crisis where you're just like, now what? Like, what do I believe? And I find
Well, that's a scary place.
it is
That's
a scary
definitely,
place.
yeah.
And I
That's where
think
most
people
people
are
jump into another cult.
right. You can go, and I have said this. I'm so glad you brought this up. I have said that. You can go from one cult to another one, and I've seen it happen.
That's most common. That is the most common thing to happen.
And so I think that when you have a person that's going into deconstruction, they're starting to question the narrative that they've been told. What is the best advice you could give somebody so that they can prevent that pendulum swinging all the way over to the other side where I see so many people who once were Christians and really dogmatic Christians go all the way to the other side and now they're like there is no God, there is no afterlife, there is no nothing.
Right. So I think the reason a lot of them jump into another cult is because that, or let's call it another religion or belief system, even the New Age, is because it's too hard to completely admit the zero God or complete nihilism or atheism or um, that's just silly. Like, even if I'm not going to be a Christian, I certainly believe this ground, this whatever it is, that there is a God, that he's at least presented partly. And because the three major, four, if you call Mormonism, Judaism, and Islam, they all have a safe place to land because at the core, they're related. They're Abrahamic. They start in the gardens. They have same ideas parts of the way through. Some of the ideas are taken straight from the other ideas. The later religions went to the earlier ones and formed theirs. And so it's a safe and easy place to jump out of one into another. That's why a great deal of people leave Christianity and join Islam or what have you. Jumping out completely of everything with now no belief system starting from ground zero. Plus, they're handed it at birth. Most people, I'm using big sweeping statements, but
Sure.
in my life and my knowledge and the people I knew, they were born into the religion of their parents. So it wasn't like they were seeking something and chose to believe this, or, and like you said, grandma said this, mom said this, dad said this. And it's faith comes by hearing and hearing and hearing and hearing and hearing. And but so does brainwashing and
Right.
indoctrination. So that is true. If you
Yeah.
hear it enough and it comes flying out of your mouth when you talk, and it's because you've been hearing and hearing and hearing. And so, like, my advice to people is before you jump into something else, because you probably didn't get the chance last time, ask all the questions first and do some research first. And instead of like theological studies, do some church history, like some actual how did this start? Who was that person? How did he get started? What is his claim to being who have you, whichever
Yeah.
prophet, this time, if you jumped out of something and into something else, it's your fault if you get stuck in another cult that's just as ridiculous with just as many claims that are just as old and out of date, and which would lead me into preterism, where if anything, I would tell people, you can believe the Bible. I believe the Bible is true. I believe it happened. I believe they are historical stories. I believe we have proven that with archaeology and I mean, they found Jericho, they found burials, they found all the things, not all the things, but they found things. We're not allowed to dig in a lot of places where they would find more things. Having all this information and then asking why do I believe this part or that part? I think it's easier now to examine and think before you jump into another belief system. But the problem is there's always someone there waiting to catch you. There's always someone like, oh, I'm so sorry the church hurt you. Why don't you come to this meeting? Or, oh, well, at my church, we do this, or what have you. So
Yeah.
it's a big mind control thing. I think religion was handed to us as a control thing, even in the beginning. The kings and the pharaohs could control the masses and do whatever they wanted while everybody else was bowing and giving Caesar what is Caesar's. And well, it's at this point, I am of the cult of nothing. Like, I am not joining another group, club, church, belief system. I'm not going to a meeting. I'm not going to a. I could go to a study, but I'm not joining after, and I'm not one of us, and I'm not a community of even in deconstruction. I'm not part of the deconstruction community. I am someone who has deconstructed.
Mm-hmm.
I'm my own person. I don't always believe what you believe, even here. So I think I'm way over or not answering your question. What was that?
No, you are. You are. So I think too, for me, I feel like deconstruction for me has been a 20-year journey, and there's still questions that I have. There's still things that I am finding out. There's still things that I'm wondering and researching and talking to people about. And I don't know that I'll ever arrive at exactly the answer, but I think what I've come to the conclusion to is that I do not believe that um, the God of the Bible is the God that is actually the one that exists in reality. I think that the God in the Bible is a little bit of a tyrant, likes war, and
Which God of the Bible? By the time you get
talking
to,
about like
yeah, I mean, there's five of
people
them
that
before the end
people
of Deuteronomy.
the way that I was raised, okay? And this is why I say my problem is they say, or the Bible says, that God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. Well, if Jesus is God and God is Jesus, and I've said this on multiple episodes, then that guy in the Old Testament is a totally different person than the guy in the New Testament. Personality is different, all of the things. It's like the message even is different. So you can't make the statement that Jesus or God is the same yesterday, today, forever, because things have changed and he has changed. And there's been times where even the God of the Old Testament changed his mind, where he regretted making humanity and he started over and used a flood to do so. There's so many things, there's so many examples, even just that Paul, my guest that was on the other episode, had brought out. Justin has brought out different contradictions in the Bible. It's like that is not the God that I believe is the true God. I think that the God of the universe is all knowing, all powerful, all loving. And I think Paul, my guest that I had on, he said it very eloquently. I'm not an eloquent person, so I'm probably going to butcher this. But essentially, um, in regards to Christ consciousness, we are one with God. So like if he made the example, like if God is a brain, then we are the wavelengths of the brain. Like we are part of. And I said people should be able to accept that, because even the Bible that they read says that we are the body of Christ. Okay? So I might be just a fingernail, but I'm part of it. I might just be a cell or an atom, or you know what I'm saying? A blood
Yeah,
vessel.
yeah.
But we're all part of, and I think that our responsibility is to come to a place of where Jesus says you love your neighbor as yourself, love God with all your heart, mind, body, soul. And so what does that look like? Does it look like war? Does it look like murdering whole civilizations? Does it look like
Slavery and
anger? Does
yeah,
it look like, I mean, I could go on and on.
yeah.
No, it doesn't. So what does that mean? Because now we're in a little bit of a standoff. Like, which is it? Right. And so that's where I'm at. I'm trying to figure out what that looks like and my what the truth is, because if I'm going off this book that has 66 books in it, but then there's other books that this council decided didn't need to be in there, why can't we read those, by the way?
Because Jesus does magic in those.
Yeah, and that's the thing, like, don't say that. Don't even bring up any of that. Like, you brought up Reiki and in energy work and stuff like that. I definitely want to talk about that, by the way. But they don't, they again, it's that picture that has been created of who they think Jesus was, what he looked like, how he dressed, how he smelled, how he spoke. They think he walked around speaking English.
I wonder myself if I was not handed a Bible and taken to CCD and put in church and given my first communion and raised the way my dad was raised, would I have come out of the womb and said, "Who is God? Who am I to worship? Which of you gods, like, which one's going to hand me a book first? Which one?" If you're not indoctrinated from birth, are you even thinking about God at all? At all. I mean, you're not thinking about any of this. And then we've got this story that claims to be in the beginning, where you have two creation stories and who's that God? I don't think that the God that you want to imagine in what you just said, the creator, the loving, the all, the in us God, I don't think he's mentioned in the Bible, really. We're talking about kings and pharaohs and lords
Right.
and people called God. And
Yeah.
um
And that's really what I'm trying to say.
yeah, it's they would have written letters saying, "My Lord and my God." They called people my God. And so we are reading the book of these people. We're not reading the book of the world or of all the world of all ever. It's literally their book. We picked it. Why not go into the library and pick up any old, dusty, old religion book and join that cult? Because that's what we do with the Bible. We pick it up and we say, "Oh, I'm in now. I'm a Gentile, or I'm whatever. Yeah, well, I'm fused in now, or whatever."
Yeah,
Uh,
grafted.
yeah, grafted in.
Yeah, yeah,
All of a sudden, we join this tribe. The stories about us. The God is our God. We're suffering the sufferings, and but why? Like, what if we didn't pick up that book or ever hear that story? We would not have any of those ideas in our heads.
yeah.
Uh,
I totally
and,
agree with that.
And
Yeah.
then even in the books, like you're saying, Jesus never, that I can think of right now, calls his God Yahweh. You're right; they are very distinct, different gods from the Old and New Testaments. Jesus doesn't call Yahweh from the cross. He says what they think is Eli or Heli, or which was not only the name of his grandpa, but you could say it was the god Helios, and where that was sun worship. Yahweh is a moon god. So we've had a split in religion, even in the Israelites, where we had the southern tribes who stayed at the temple, which was Levi, Benjamin, and Judah. Half of Benjamin and Judah stayed in the southern temple area, where the others, all the other Israelites, went up and built a cow again at Dan. And they were in the Babylonian areas, but they're not going to the temple every week or day or whatever they did. They became separate and they intermingled and married with other people and cultures and things. And there's even in the Bible, he's telling them, "Don't be scared as you go up there because they nail trees to the wall, or like they have weird gods, and but only Yahweh." Or it's like the gods are fighting for your attention, and he's not saying, "I'm the only God." It's, "I'm the God of gods.
Hmm.
I'm the God of gods, the Lord of lords." He's in a heavenly council. He Elohim is plural. There's Yahweh is the trickster that he just made everybody believe he's the one true God. He's the God. He's the one we follow. He's the one the Israelites followed. Da 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 da. And our brains don't separate. Like, well, that's not really what's going on here in the New Testament, or Maybe it's what they're breaking away from by saying all of that. You've seen it written, but I say this. So they don't all agree on it, and they don't all follow it. And like I said, even the Israelites, after being out of Egypt, built another cow statue. Moses
Yeah.
destroyed it. So they're worshiping other gods the whole way through.
And then
They
it
just
makes me
don't want you
wonder
to think so.
too. And and it makes me think too, like, okay, you I I just my mind is so goofy. I think of the movie The Ten Commandments, right? Where Charleston Heston's character goes up to get the tablets, and then all of a sudden he's coming down with the tablets, and I'm like, how did they make that thing so fast?
Yeah, right?
Come on. Now they're grabbing everyone's earrings and rings and necklaces
Yeah.
and all their jewelry, and then all of a sudden they're melting it into this golden calf. And I
So
said,
wait, stop right there. Stop right there. Think about that. So they're slaves, right? They're poor slaves. And they've been kicked out of Egypt and chased out and wandering in the desert. Why do they have so much gold?
there's that.
They've got enough gold and enough cloth and enough accoutrement to make the tabernacle in the desert, which took a lot of fabric and a lot of things and gold and stuff to do. They didn't leave empty-handed. They pillaged Egypt before they left. They weren't chased out. They were given tribute to leave, or they, like it said, they took it. So are they the poor victims, or why you got so many earrings really? And now they don't wear earrings at all, right?
It just made me think, like, how did they make it so fast, and why did they have all that gold jewelry? I've been
Yeah.
thinking about
Well,
that since I was a kid.
I was thinking more about how this 80-year-old man climbed a mountain several times in one day, even to get to the
And then
top of
have
the peak.
these huge tablets.
Yeah, with these big stones coming
I
down and
mean, let's just be honest. He was probably so butt tired that he dropped him on his way down.
right?
Because, okay, he's carrying two big tablets. He has no hands to get down. Like, you're climbing down a mountain. Come on. Have you ever seen somebody climb a mountain?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, and not at 80. But and I think
Yeah.
that's what he came down to. So he's trying to switch the worship, and they are still wanting to worship the cow.
Correct.
And so he slays it. It's always a battle between these two groups the whole way through the stories. Uh, and more groups, not just these two, but they're the main stars there for a minute.
And
But
so
I think
you
because
think
we're
that has
reading
to,
their book, in the beginning is in the beginning of their story, not the beginning of the world and the universe and the creation of all mankind. It's in the beginning of this garden story, this temple garden where we walk naked and hang out with the god of this garden. We walk with him and we talk with him, and it's their story. This is the beginning of this priesthood.
Mhm.
This Adam, the first priest king of it, but we know he's not the first people because now we have the Epic of Gilgamesh and we have Cain being marked so nobody else hurts him, and well, there's too many clues that this is not the beginning of the beginning.
So do you think when it comes to the zodiac in the Bible, do you think it's more about like just like symbolic language, or like is it like more literal?
Okay, so I think that they were telling these stories. Okay, so there's real people, right? I believe there are real characters who are really looking up at the real sky and the real zodiac, but they're also kind of acting it out. They're mimicking it at the same time. For example, I couldn't say for sure, but there's a couple of religions that do spinning. They spin counterclockwise around an object, or the whirling dervishes do it. They do it at Mecca. They do it. They're spinning in a rotational thing around a rock, and I believe that that's a zodiac meaning. Like they're imitating the stars in the sky by doing that. There's no
Mm,
other reason.
I
So I think
see.
it's both. I think back in the day they would have done like we've seen in movies where you have a scorpion king, or they would put on headdresses with goat heads and dance around like Moloch, or have a bonfire, and they would take these zodiac ideas, and the king would be Orion, for he'd be Gilgamesh. So there's the Gilgamesh in the sky, which is Orion, and then there's the king on earth that is embodying that. And for these ceremonies, he'll dress a certain way. He might carry a club in his hand and he might chase a bull. They are mimicking the sky. These people, these tribes, these religions would look up and do this. The
Hmm.
priests would use it for teaching. They would act out a story, that a sky story. Even Noah's Ark is probably a zodiac. There's Argo. They've broken it up now, but the only ship constellation it's a story where, like two of each animal coming to it. It's zodiac speak, pretty much. Was there a worldwide flood? We're having a hard time proving that and not proving that,
Hmm.
or agreeing on it at the very least. Did it? So I think it's both. I think there's a lot of zodiac speak, but they would know what it meant or why it was being said. For example, in the New Testament, there's a part where they're told, go find the man carrying a pitcher of water. Follow him into whatever house he goes into. Okay, that's zodiac speak. The man you're just going to walk into a town and find a man carrying a pitcher of water. So we're supposed to believe that miraculously there is a man walking carrying a pitcher of water, or it's the Aquarius, the man with the pitcher of water is the constellation. Follow him into the upper room, into the house that he goes. So ask him, is I forget all this, but ask him something, is it prepared for the master or something like that. So in those days where they would have been having church in upper rooms and houses and they weren't going to big old cathedrals and stuff, I believe we have found in archaeology zodiac motif floors, Jewish zodiacs. They are mosaic tiled floors in temples that show for sure they were into zodiac. But I think probably they would have even sat around the zodiac, which is why sometimes we see the apostles called like by the names of the months. I haven't seen it a lot, but somewhere like on a bookmark or something, you'd see like, oh, Paul is January, or you know what I mean? Like, and I think probably they would have sat on the floor on a zodiac and today John is sitting on Pisces, and today Mark is sitting on Aquarius. So the man with the pitcher of the water, which house does he go in into this upper room? And then this is where they have their secret inauguration meetings and initiations and so on and so forth. They get taught the zodiac secrets. That's
Hmm.
probably what the fish and the bread are.
Loaves
The
and fishes.
Yeah, it's teaching about the new Pisces coming upon us. And
So do
bread
you
has always
think
been
then
knowledge.
do you think then that was like again, it was just a nod to the zodiac where Jesus fed the 5,000, the multitude with the loaves and fishes
I think that means he was teaching them about this stuff.
about it? Okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
these were new
that's
initiates. He goes, he's it's like a cult guy going out into the desert with a bunch of new followers, and he's teaching them that the zodiac is changing to Pisces. It's upon us. It's the
mhm.
fishermen, the fisher kings. We're in the fisher world.
Yeah.
And
And
then we have baskets. We have 12 baskets. Those are 12 houses. I mean, it's all very symbolic in that area.
that's very
Um,
interesting.
yeah.
And then Jesus always spoke in parables too. So
Okay.
like are any of the parables a zodiac correlation?
I think the parables are more true stories
Okay.
that maybe they weren't allowed to talk about because of Rome, or they had to be secret about what they were saying or doing and telling the stories. But I believe they were true stories. For example, the out of state landlord. He had workers on the field and they hide the money, and one grows
Hmm.
it and one does this and one does that. And then there's like all kinds of parables where it's like, I think that was really happening. The one with the wedding, the king invites everybody to the wedding, but they take it lightly. They don't care. They don't want to come. So he goes and invites the street people, and they come, but one of them wouldn't put on his church garments or something, and he gets thrown out to the outer banks with gnashing his
Yeah.
teeth. I think that's a true story that really happened, where there was a king who probably was having a marriage that they were frowning upon. His son or daughter was probably marrying someone the people didn't want him to marry. And so they're like, no, we're not going to support this wedding. We're not coming. And he said, fine, I'll invite these people. And so I think the parables are more of a true story
Mhm.
that he was telling about actual events going on at the time. There was some land that Rome promised tax free, but then they were using it themselves or taxing it, and so it's he got rid of all the tax people and the
What about the prodigal son? Because I'm sitting here listening to you talk about basically there was this dynamic of what ideology is going to win, the bull or the lamb, right? The this teaching of back and forth where it seems like the Israelites were
by the
going.
time we figure it out, we're going to be dawning on the age of Aquarius.
It just made me think of like the prodigal son, this story of the prodigal son, and then you have like the father, and you have the one son that leaves, and then the other son that stays and works and is faithful. But then basically, I've always thought, hey, if I was the one that stayed and was faithful, I would be pissed too. If some delinquent sibling of mine came back and then it was like, let's
For
throw a
sure.
party, let's give him all the best, let's do it. It's like, screw
No,
that.
yeah, he's not getting the big room back. Forget it. Right. So,
Yeah. So I
yeah.
didn't know if that was like a story that was created for the Israelites as a comparison type of thing. What are your thoughts on that?
So I think the stories are much bigger than we are given, right? So we get one little sentence about an entire people movement or something going on. We don't get a lot of, and what we never get really is the story of the other brother,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So we follow the favorite. And the
Yeah, and it's
favorite,
always preached that the other brother, he had a bad attitude, he was bitter, he shouldn't have acted that way, and all this stuff. And it's like, I'm
but who's
sorry.
telling the story?
Yeah.
So it's there's so many stories even to this day. Most religions happened because two brothers got in a fight and one wanted to go over there and grow corn and this one didn't like corn, or like
Yeah.
it's always something like that with Jacob and Esau. And which brings me to another, like the Exodus event that we have is probably a way bigger, probably over years. There were in the Bible we have at least three or four kind of Exodus events that I think were probably much bigger Civil War type events, but they're kind of just glossed over. Like when Abraham is kicked out of Egypt, he's told, "Why have you done this to me and brought plagues upon my household?" And the Pharaoh, for telling me that's your sister, why didn't you tell me it was your wife? The Pharaoh doesn't kill them. He makes them, you can't stay here. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here, kind of thing. Is Abraham got to leave with his people and his women and his slaves and his cattle and his stuff and his gold and his cousin and his Pharaoh just saw them to the state line and said, "You can't. You've brought plague onto my household by doing this to me." There's a moment where a big group of people was probably moved because we know that it's so big that him and Lot can't even share the land
Mhm.
when they get out. They one has to go over there because we're just big. Abraham's 300 men, if they call them servant workers or something. I mean, what kind of poor shepherd out in the field has 300 servant men running around? Those
Mhm.
were probably military captains. There were probably 1,000 people under each 300 of them. He was probably a much bigger story than we're getting. He was probably a king and he ruled in Egypt for a time and something went wrong and then we hear about the plagues. So that's one Exodus where we see Abraham and a big group of people moving. Even with Jacob and Esau, Jacob has to go fleeing. He's afraid of his brother and he has to get out of there and they go running. In fact, that's probably who's up in Israel by the time the others get there. They go and burning cities as they go and probably burn Jericho even. So big movements where we're just like, Esau was a jerk. And but what happened? He had lands and people, and so there's a whole different story that we don't have the book for. We're not, they didn't write an annal or like, I don't know why they don't have a Bible, but most of the times it's a brother. Oh, that brother got lost to history, or we don't know what happened to him, or he was of no importance. And really, it's just to keep you focused on this main group of people and their story and their God and their in the beginning.
Yeah. So do you think that so you're not saying like every story of the Bible is symbolic with the zodiac?
Correct.
Okay.
I am
Yeah.
saying that the zodiac runs heavily through what these
True.
people, these real people, believed and worshipped and did and said, and how their worship would change or become at all. I think the halo between the saint, I mean, behind the heads of the saints in the artwork that you see is a sun. It's the sun worshippers. They were the Helios, the Aten worship. Yeah, it's what's a halo? Like, come on, it's
Right. That's
something
interesting.
symbolic, right? So it's probably a sun symbol. So is the phoenix. So is a palm tree. A lot of these symbols are talking about solar or lunar or planetary things.
That's interesting. I know yesterday we had talked on the phone and we had talked about Jesus's power and doing energy work and Reiki, and that freaks people out. When you say that, they're like, Jesus wasn't New Age. He wasn't into all that Eastern mysticism type stuff. Let's talk about that because all of this is very interesting to me. Um, and when we brought this up yesterday, you got really excited. So dive
Just
into that
because
more.
I think new age is actually the old age. Like it was tucked. I think the Bible, the religion, all religions have probably set us back by thousands of years as far as progress goes.
Mhm.
Back when they were doing science and magic and things and maths and such, the religions quashed it. The governments didn't want you being smart and questioning authority and knowing more than the king or the sun or the. So if we can keep you focused on this, but I don't see any difference. That's just something that I came up with in my brain is laying on of hands. I used to be like, oh my God, I knew this girl who was a psychic. That's her job. She reads tarot cards and been to all kinds of gurus and does that for a living and does parties. And she always wanted to do my reading. I'm like, oh, heck no. I think that there's no way that the laying on, how could you not be freaked out about some traveling preacher coming and laying on hands on people and making people's legs longer than the other? If you've ever been to a healing meeting or the believers conferences or anything like that, you'll go and people are healed at these meetings. There's a guy that will come up and he'll lay hands on you and you'll fall down or your leg will grow out and your sight will come back or your tumor will shrink or what have you. People swear by it. There's witnesses. They've said it's happened in their own families. But I believe even that is sort of an energy healing because you've got everybody focused on one thing. I don't think the magic is in the preacher's hand. I think that's just a point of faith where we're doing energy work.
Hmm.
We're focusing on a person, their ailments, praying for the best.
Hmm.
Whatever praying is to people. Are you chanting? Are you praying? Are you casting a spell? Are you, you
Hmm.
know, are you reading a planet? Like, what are you doing? I think it's kind of all the same. But they just wanted to criminalize it because it's not our way. If it's not our way, it's not Yahweh. I don't see any. Of course, there's people that are like, it's bad. And that's going to be from Yahweh who wanted all the attention and power. And don't look at the planets and look at me and I do everything and I created them. And where there's probably people that are much more free than us, where they can think for themselves and see that stuff actually work.
Yeah.
Now fast forward a little bit into I saw you getting your what was it, your birth charts done? Yeah, was that yesterday? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I float between. I live in the between land where I don't know that the planets pull our personalities and say things. There's a lot of things that relate, and you're like, oh yeah, I am like Taylor Swift with my energy, or like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's fun to know we're the same sign, and look at
Yeah.
me. But there's about 700 million thousand other people that will say that I could relate to everything in your sign. I am less like my sign. Every time I have ever read a horoscope, I'm like, almost. Like, I don't sit well in my sign. When they tell, like, you're this or you're that, or you like to lead and do this. And I'm like, nope, wrong guy.
Yeah.
I really don't relate to my sign. That being said, I also think that the signs are off. I think really you're not the zodiac sign that you think you are, but you're the one, would it be before or after? Before it, because
Okay.
they haven't updated it in 2000 years. There's I
Okay.
don't
Is
think
this
we're
where you're talking about like the Gregorian calendar versus the Julian calendar?
No,
Okay.
but go ahead. Do you have a thought there?
I mean, because I had there was something that came out I want to say last year I saw online where it was like there's actually 13 months and
Yes.
and
There's a whole nother sign.
yeah, okay. So and then talked about like September should be 7, October should be 8, like
Right, right,
sept
right.
oc and it's not.
Deck, right. It's
So
not.
it's
It is
off.
off. Things have been removed. Things have been renamed. There's constellations that are not visible anymore, so they just picked a different one because they didn't relate it to the religion or the history
Mhm.
of some ancient text that was talking about it. So it's like, oh, well, we can no longer see Argo Novus in the sky, so we don't talk about it. Or we split it up into three different constellations and never refer to it have been in a ship. So yes, things have changed. Things have been taken out. I don't know if it was right at Gregorian and Roman. I know even the Egyptian calendar, like they had floating days where they ended up with extra week at the end of the year and they had to stop that by having a festival day or and over the years it would correct itself to stay in tune with the zodiac where today we celebrate new year's in the freezing cold death of January
Right.
instead of in spring
In
when
April.
everything
Yeah.
is new, right? So clearly we've been messed with. I think it's all about there's people that will tell you about the Schumann resonance and the vibes and the the I don't know anything about any of that stuff, but I think probably there's something to energy. And I don't feel like celebrating spring in January necessarily if you live somewhere where there's actual weather. Nothing's blooming, nothing's new, nothing's warm and bright. And so we've been messed up with that, with time change, with what we eat and how we plant and when our crops will
Mhm.
be good. And
Right.
so whichever calendar, there's been a few switches over the years, but we've been sometimes it was to realign us with those festivals and times of year, and sometimes it would float away from that again.
And would the festivals coincide with the zodiac?
It, probably more with like moon festivals, like the
Mhm.
full and waning and waxing moons, and where the sun is in the sky, or what. Yeah, it would be in the sky, but not necessarily constellation. More of solar lunar movements,
Mhm.
probably,
Mhm.
mostly for most
I see.
calendars.
Yeah.
Um,
So,
yeah,
I mean, that right there is just very interesting to me. But so somebody could be listening to this to say, okay, what does that have to do with the Bible? How do you think that if someone reads your book and looks at that from the lens, like then reads their Bible from the lens of the zodiac, is that going to change their view on things?
a lot of the miracles are going to seem a little weird.
How so?
So, like
And you
that
don't have to
13th.
give me like a reference. I don't need like a in Luke, blah, blah, blah. You don't just tell
Yeah,
people
no,
can look
like
it up.
for example, that 13th Zodiac that you were talking about, I think it's Taylor Swift's favorite, actually. It's her number
Which is
13. And
13, which is weird because 13 has been demonized. The actual, oh, 13 is an unlucky number.
well, and there's other reasons for that, but I think
It's
that
just
was
weird.
what they say the Templars were murdered on the 13th or something. I mean, there's all they use the numbers over the years for different things. But there was a constellation which whose name I'm not going to be able to think of right now. It starts with an O. It is the one that Taylor likes. I'm trying to look it up. Ospicius or something. But that particular zodiac is of a man handling a snake. So you will be able to handle snakes and not be harmed. That is zodiac speak. You can drink from the cup and not be poisoned. There's
Oh,
another
this is
zodiac.
where the Pentecostals have gone crazy. That's what they think.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
Yeah, you ended up
that is
with snake charmer. There's whole groups of people handling snakes as a church service in the Ozarks. But
mhm.
all the snake charming, and that's because Paul said you could handle snakes and not be harmed, or someone said it. But that is definitely a zodiac speak. I talked about the man with the pitcher of water. That's zodiac speak. I think that the Bible doesn't say rainbow at the time of Noah's Ark. It says bow. And
Yes.
I think that's Sagittarius. It's trying to tell us what time it is. The Bible is telling us what time it is. It's the bow of, it's an archer's bow of Sagittarius. It says bow.
It
Um,
says bow. It doesn't say rainbow, guys. Sorry. I know you all
sorry,
want to think that the LGBTQIA community stole it. They didn't. It's
you can
just,
let them have it. Let them have it. You never owned
I'm,
it. Yeah.
I know. It's like, oh, I know. It just, when I read that, I got really excited and I was like, you're right. It does say bow. It does not say rainbow.
It
Does
does
not.
not say rainbow. If
But
I saw something weird in the Bible, I went and I was like,
looked
where
it up.
could we figure this out? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but for me, I would like people to deconstruct from not just Christianity. I'm not the one that's like, so a lot of people say, I only bash on Christians because I was a Christian. But I think at this point, especially for the next generation, I think it's kind of important, in my opinion, to
Mhm.
stop all of these religions. They've done nothing but bring harm, damage, death, murder. We're having
War.
wars, yeah, religious wars and people in captivity and because of religion. I think the easiest thing to see that will change your mind if you give it a fair chance is preterism. It's
Now explain what that is for anybody that doesn't know.
okay, so there's full and partial preterism. I am a full preterist.
Okay.
Preterism is the idea that the entirety of the book of Revelation and the Old Testament is in the
Past.
past. Yes. It already happened. We're not getting a new Jerusalem. We're not looking at new times. We're not doing it. It's done. It is finished. It is over. And there are people who could explain all the things that you're going to say, like, what about the king with this or the desecration of that, or the you'll see things in Revelation go like, oh, that didn't happen yet. That didn't happen yet.
Right.
There are people definitely and that can tell you, which I could tell you most of them, but it's a whole conversation, word by word, like how, yes, that did happen in the first century. Yes, they did encircle this city for 40 days. Yes, there were locusts. Yes, there were all of the things that you're fearing in the book of Revelation already took place in the first century.
Mhm.
Anything can become a cult, or
Anything.
if you're told not to think or don't lean on your own understanding, you need to run. If you celebrate the
Exactly.
founder's birthday, you should run. If they're concerned about your underwear in any way, shape, or form, it's a cult, like
Oh yeah.
Mormonism.
The Mormons,
uh,
yeah.
well, and the military, even. It's a necessary cult, but it's a cult.
It
Uh,
is a cult.
yeah, so
Yeah.
any of it,
We just
if
we
you
just
can't
lost
leave,
the last two people that were listening to this episode. How dare you say the military?
whatever, guys,
Oh, I'm a patriot.
whatever.
Not only are you blaspheming, but now you're just desecrating America.
Yeah, I know. I didn't think I was going to go all the way there, but here we are.
No, it's
Here we are.
fine. It's totally fine. It's good. Okay, so but like hell, that is a really hard concept for people to grasp. Like, how can you say there's not a hell? There has to be a place for the bad people to go.
Yeah,
Um,
wouldn't that be comforting? It would be nice.
yeah. And
Yeah,
so, but they're closed minded to the concept of like having multiple lives, being able to pass in one life if you were a bad person and then be re-entered into another life where you're going to learn some hard lessons because karma. um
right,
they're closed-minded to that concept, and
right.
even though they
Well,
can't
then
prove it
imagine
either
the
way.
split. Like I had to have a split. There's a lot of disassociation that goes on because early on, when you're learning all this stuff, you do have questions. You're like, what? That doesn't make sense. How did
Right.
that happen? But then eventually you stop asking those questions because you're taught to just believe, just have
Exactly.
faith. Your faith
Yep.
isn't big enough if you're asking questions. So when I think back at the split personality I had to have to believe in hell and walk around in my normal day-to-day life and I believed everything. I was a Bible believing, spirit filled, like this is not, none of that's new to me. But looking back, if I believed that my cousin or my relatives or I had a cousin that committed suicide because he was at one of those provost schools, those
Oh my gosh, a
wilderness
TTI.
wilderness schools. Yes. So he blew his brains out, and this is after he got out of it. He was an adult. He was engaged. He was about to pull it together. He got his welding license, and everything was going good. And you think, gosh, what happened? You got out. You got out.
But he had
And prior to
childhood
that,
trauma.
his family was super Christian. Like his mom was really super, super, oh, we lost the car keys. Everybody bow your heads and pray, right?
Yeah.
So that's how he's
Well,
raised. And then
yeah.
by having a personality, he's a bad kid. And so let's ship him off to one of these places. And
Yeah.
And anyway, but the point is, he committed suicide and he was a bad kid and he didn't believe anymore. And so, if I believed for 1 second that people that have died, like grandma, or they died without knowing Jesus, are burning in hell,
Right.
if I thought for 1 second that my brother, who was not a believer when he went to war, was not like, he's gonna, if he dies, he's gonna burn in hell. Like, I wasn't concerned if he died in war. I was concerned of his afterlife. My biggest concern was,
Sure.
I want to see you again in heaven. Like, it's kind of sick how we don't focus on this life at all and we bypass it and let it go by so fast, focusing on the next one that may or may not be a thing.
Mhm.
Um, but the splitting of my brain to think, how am I just at lunch right now knowing that Aunt Gertrude is in hell boiling in fire? You know what I mean? Like, if
Yeah.
I either believe it or I don't. I either believe it or I don't. And the same with heaven. Can I really wrap my brain around? No, but oh, then it's because my understanding isn't big enough. Then I'm not supposed to understand it. And
Right.
neither do you. Neither do you, because the Bible just told you three things. There's a throne, there's a gold streets, there's no need of the sun or the moon, and whatever else, with some gates and
Pearly gates, jasper
yeah,
walls. Yeah.
right. So in my opinion, that's already been done.
So in regards to preterism, what is the view on heaven and hell? Or
Well,
is it
I
mainly just about end times is already
back
best?
then they didn't really have, the Jews especially didn't have an idea of eternity with God in heaven, or really hell for that matter either. I
And
think that's why there's
preterism.
not a lot written about it. So preterism, I think, okay, so I think it's the healthiest because when you look at it, it's over. It doesn't affect us. If it was over so long ago, that means that by the time I was born, by the time you were born, by the time any of us, your grandma, your grandpa were born, it
Mhm.
was already finished. So that means you weren't born into sin. You weren't born into this where you had to be set free by a savior who needed to shed his blood. And that had nothing to do with you because you're born after it was finished. Either Jesus' blood conquered sin or it didn't. And it's still put into every newborn baby who was born a dirty sinner at this point, right? So that's what we're supposed to believe. You're told that you're a sinner. You're made to believe that you're sinning is separation from God, which whatever, but are you further away because of this religion? Like you said, if we were closer to the red letters, then you can find inspiration anywhere. I mean, Buddha had some really nice things to say too, and some, you can live by stoicism, you can live by any philosophy thoughts. I mean, you can get tools anywhere and use them, but if you have to then worship something or believe that you're dirty and not worthy and somehow need this to save you, then I would run. And preterism, I think, helps with that because it's done. Like, it's not happening anymore. You're not being born. You don't have to be set free. You're not going to hell for sinning, obviously, or you we're not even acting like we believe it. I'm gonna sin and sin and repent. I mean, you'd be so far away from sin if you literally thought hell was the, if you could believe that yourself, the gnashing of teeth and the, if you thought there was any chance of you going there after lying, then people would never lie again.
Right.
So I think they don't believe it really, but they have to believe it and they're supposed to believe it. And then there's a fear because what if it's true? And then what if
Mhm.
people smarter than myself said so? Or I think preterism sets you free from all of it because it doesn't, you don't have to join, it is finished. Even so, the main part of preterism that I like is the all of it discourse. When Jesus was standing there telling his friends, looking them in the eyes, the same way you and I are sitting here talking right now, he was telling them what they were about to go through. He told them that he would return before they got through the cities, that
Mhm.
some of those standing there, even the ones that pierced him, would still be there when he returned. They would see him returning on the clouds. They were going through all of this. This is Jesus in person, first century, talking to his people about this stuff. So either he was lying to them or he's lying to us. And that's a good way to think about it. When you read your Bible, is Jesus lying to his friends when he says, some of you standing here will still be here? Or am I reading it wrong and trying to add myself to the story and pretend he was talking to me
Right.
2,000 years later? So he was telling them soon, these things are happening soon. This is at hand. This is knocking on their door. It's shortly. It's all the words of urgency. It's happening in the first century. And we're eternally waiting for it, and it's not going to happen, and it's never going to happen because it already happened.
Yeah.
um,
So do you
but
think that there was any zodiacs in what he was saying to them? Like in his ascent back to heaven as well. Like any like seeing him in the cloud. Like I'm thinking my mind just goes to all these places when you're talking. Like I'm like, and then the book of Revelations, it says he's gonna be coming down from the sky riding on a horse. Like, is any
So
of that
that's Zodiac. I think that's Zodiac. If you look up each of the four horses, you can
oh, I was
find
gonna ask about
Zodiac.
the four horsemen. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, you can find Zodiac meaning behind each one of those. But as far as the Olivet Discourse and what he was saying to them, I think it was more of reality, less Zodiac. The Romans, this is happening, the war, the temple, this will not be standing. Like honestly, it's there's I think the words are coded for the war that they really were about to go through. And he was using speak that they would understand. They knew what he was talking about. They didn't have to imagine what it could possibly be 2,000 years later when you can't imagine being encompassed on all sides. Everything that is said about that war can be shown to have already happened, which is the fear of Revelation, the book of Revelation. In
One
fact,
of the
my church wouldn't even teach it. I had to ask one time. So I'm the type of person where like if I'm holding the book, I need to know everything in it, or like why are we bothering? Like why are we only reading the middle every day? I don't know anything about the beginning or the end of this book. And once you do, then you can see bigger picture, right? And then when you read the books they took out, even bigger picture.
yeah.
Like so you're given a portion and be like, believe that, and you don't know why or where or how or if you do. So like when I started reading those other books, so I said earlier that I think religion has set us back as far as science and philosophy and growth and magic. And there was a guy in the first century living at the same time and in some of the same locations as Jesus. His name was Hero of Alexandria. And he was pretty much a scientist. He went to the mystery schools, which really meant that they were learning math and zodiac and things, lots of things. This guy in the first century, he made a steam engine, he made a water fountain, he made a fountain for the temples where, like, if you put a coin in, it would give you a little dose of holy water, or something, like the first vending machine, basically.
It would suck the money in and hand it to the
Yeah,
priest immediately.
and then you could have a little water on your face. Yeah. Well, and then he had another one where if you lit candles on the altar, the doors would close, the temple doors would close. So you hear stories like, oh, and the candles went out and the doors flew open, and oh, like it's like, well, yeah, because that's the magic trick. But this all he had. But another thing that this hero of Alexandria created was these automation birds. He made birds, I think, out of clay or, I mean, whatever, metal or something. I think they were clay birds, and he made them seem real. Like, you know, when you go to Disneyland and you're walking by a parrot and it starts
Yeah,
talking to you and it's like, hey guys, welcome
sure.
to.
Yeah.
Right. So they were like
I
that. They
hate
could.
Disney World though, but yeah, I know what you're talking about.
I've only been to the Epcot, like I've been to the Epcot Center once. I remember it fondly. We call it the Epcot Death March because it was like 500 degrees and humid and gnarly. Uh, so
I
that was
don't
good.
know. To me, hell looks like Disney World in the middle of a Florida summer. That's hell.
Exactly.
That is
I
hell.
agree.
Like you
I
couldn't
agree.
pay me. I will repent all day long in order to avoid that vacation because that is not one that I would ever want to go to. Disney World in the midsummer of Florida for sure. That's hell. We've just
Clearly.
solved it. We've solved it. That's it.
There is a hell. We were wrong. I was wrong.
Case closed. We're
Yeah.
done.
I forgot about the Epcot Death March. Oh my
I
gosh.
can't believe people pay to go to those. I just now.
I I lived near Disneyland in California, so Disney
Okay,
World
well,
was not my
Disneyland
not
was
my
probably
jam.
better. Yeah,
Well,
Disneyland
it might have been. It was
better.
might maybe a little better, but still, it's hell on earth. Like in my life, I probably went 10 times and lived close.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's you don't go if you live by it. You're like, what are you people doing here?
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
uh,
I didn't go
tourists.
when I wasn't living near it, and I'm still not going.
Even then, right?
Went
Okay, well
one
there you have it.
time. I went one time as an adult, and that will never happen again. I don't care if somebody hands me tickets to Disney World. I will sell them on Facebook
Yeah,
Marketplace.
right. Been there, done that, got the
No, thank
ears.
you. I don't get it.
Got the ears. Yeah.
Okay. So I want to highlight your book and let people know where they can find it because I'm not a huge book reader, okay? If somebody sends me a book, I'm going to read it. It might take me a year because time. But this I read in like an hour and a half, 2 hours, sitting at the pool one day. And I was like, this is very interesting. For one, I had started, my brain is always thinking in weird directions that probably the average person doesn't think about. Hence, no dentistry in Jesus's day.
Right.
But and I've had conversations with my husband before about why are we not taught astronomy or astrology? Why are we not taught this in school anymore? This was like the basis of everything for them back in the day for centuries. It was like their timepiece, their map, their guide. And we're not taught it in churches or schools. And I always thought that was the oddest thing. Well, then when you sent this to me, I was like, oh, this is why. This has to be one of the reasons why. It
Hmm.
just makes sense. So, for anyone who is interested in learning more about the zodiac and how it correlates with the Bible, where can they find your book?
The book is sold on Amazon only at this point, and the link is in my bio on TikTok, or you can go straight to Amazon and look for What If I Told You Zodiac in the Holy Texts. And just a side note, the book was supposed to be less about Zodiac and more about proving that Jesus existed. That was the argument that I had that started me on all of this. When I came onto TikTok, I was deconstructed already, thank God. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
have to do it in public and fight all these people on it. But I came in with my tool belt and met other people and wanted to be in conversations with people who can have conversations without being religiously offended, or we need to be able to talk about the facts, and we need to be able to set our
Yeah.
religiosity aside and look at and examine the texts and the ideas and the voices and the people and what has been done, what has been taken out, what seminary isn't teaching. Nobody really takes the time to think or real like, am I part of this group? Am I born a dirty sinner? Like, do I need saving? Like, what is all this about? Who is this about? When was it written? What, which is why I really think preterism is important, because at the very least, if someone picks it up, they can think it through. Like, is this in the future or the past?
Mm-hmm.
Um, Before you dive all the way in. But so the gist of my book was less about Zodiac, but I had to show that that was in there to show why a lot of people have the argument. The main argument on TikTok when I joined was, did Jesus exist? Or
Mm-hmm.
is he a myth? Or did the Romans invent him? Or what have you? And a lot of people have gone from Christianity to preterism to it never happened. And
Mm-hmm.
that's where I kind of stand out in the deconstruction space is, yes, preterism, yes, it happened. No, they weren't made up. They're not myths. They are real people with myth laid on top of their lives, just like any, like Alexander the Great. Yeah, this really happened, but did he fly on a horse and do, like all the things? So
Interesting.
yeah, so it's knowing that they really existed, and almost, I mean, to the point of proving it there at the end of the book. You can see how they tried to hide it and lose it, and why and how, and who would have not wanted that out there, because it would stop the 2,000 years of people still joining. The
Yeah.
church needs that story.
Yeah. And so if you don't mind, can I read a little excerpt from your book?
No, I don't mind at all.
Okay. So towards the end of it, it says, the sky never lied. We just stopped looking up. Gilgamesh wasn't a man who became a planet. He was a planet, Orion, that walked as a man. Every time Orion's belt cleared the horizon at winter solstice, the priest shouted, Gilgamesh has risen. The king stepped forward, put on the cedar crown, and became the constellation for that year. Same with Osiris, same with Abraham, same with Isa. Isa?
That's
Uh,
another name for Jesus. I think that's in the Quran.
okay. And that's why Paul never mentions nails, spear, crown of thorns, earthquakes, darkness, veil torn in temple, grave clothes, woman, or Pilate in his letters and sermons, because in the 50s CE, Paul was watching Aries bleed out at the equinox and screaming, "Behold the Lamb of God crucified in the heavens." He literally had no earthly crucifixion to talk about because it hadn't happened yet. Fast forward 15 years, the equinox sun is now fully inside Pisces, a flesh and blood Galilean royal named Isa. Same person who Josephus crowns king of the Jews in Antiquities 20 stands on the Mount of Olives in 66 CE, looks his friends dead in the eye, and says, "Some of you will not taste death until you see the Son of Man coming on the clouds." Very interesting. It says he wasn't prophesying, he was live streaming.
Yeah, I think that coming on the clouds throws a lot of people because now we, you, me, everybody's looking up in the sky waiting for Jesus to return on some cloud. I've pictured it several different ways in my head. Sometimes it's funny.
Mhm.
They do it in the movies, like he's standing on the cloud.
Yeah.
I think that type of speak is used. Okay, so if someone was going to say prove it and show me, I'd have to go look it up. But I'm sure that in other writings, not even religious, that's how they talked about war, the clouds of war. He was going to be returning with the horses and the war and his father's army behind him, and you will see me returning on the clouds. That's when this is going to go down.
And it says the temple's already on fire behind him. The Romans are 4 years away from finishing the job. The disciples lived to see every syllable come true. There was no 40-year split between Jesus returning to the one who sent him and his return on the clouds as he promised. And the road to Damascus meeting was in person. Paul, why do you persecute me? Was a real face-to-face question.
So I think
Explain
that
that.
there's, yeah, that's a little harder to explain and it's a little harder to prove, but I cannot stop thinking about it myself. I think that in any story where there is a time where somebody had to fall asleep or go away or go to jail or die for 40 years and then they come back and then they're living a life, I think that's a literary tool of some sort. And I don't think that 40 years is there necessarily. I think it goes from Jesus telling his friends to not much later coming back because this war is happening, this real war. He was called the King of the Jews hundreds of times, but no one
Mhm.
admits that he was really an earthly king of a group of Jews. So
Mhm.
either he is or isn't, but this war is not someone floating down from the clouds. It's the Roman war that happened already. So they did see him return and he didn't
So
lie
you
to
do
them.
think that Paul and Jesus did meet?
I do think they did. I think,
Okay.
yeah, I do. I
Interesting.
don't think that Paul joined the. I don't think he got in. I don't think he might have heard some of the fringe teaching, but he didn't make the cut, and he's a little bitter because I think perhaps his brother, when Judas dies, they're picking another disciple out of two people. I forget, maybe one of them's named Matthias or something. It might be a relative of Paul or something. Anyway, he's obviously on the outside. He knows some stuff. He's against some stuff. He's talking about them. He uses words like fornicators, and he's always talking about this group of people, the long
Sure.
hairs and eating with women and what have you. So he's he's got a different message. He has his own gospel
Hmm.
that he's it's barely recognizable to anybody. So he gets arrested for it. Anyway, so yeah, I think that it's a literary tool. This 40-year thing is weird. And when you read my book, you will see how it lines up. And when you squash that, everything else lines up. The true history comes out. You can find things in outside history, but you have to be looking in the right times and places for that to happen.
I think this was a
If I'm
very,
right.
yeah, if you're right. Yep, of course. And I like that you were able to say that because you're just providing the evidence that you found and people can
Yeah.
come to their
I
conclusion.
used to think I used to think that I was right as a Christian. I was so right. You could never change my mind. You could not prove otherwise. I was right. And then I learned that I wasn't. And that is devastating. I was not right. And now I'm at the point where even with what I think I've learned, I still don't feel like I know everything and could be wrong about a few things because I'm never going to think I totally figured this out ever again. When I think of how long that I literally had a Christian belief system where this is true and that is couldn't be this and that and I have to treat them this way and believe that about those people, and you couldn't have told me I was wrong. You could try, but you couldn't. So
Mhm.
I've learned that I might not be right, and that's okay. But I'm more right than I was before, and I'm happy with progress. So
Yes. Yes, I think this has been a great conversation. And for anyone listening that wants to get Indy's book and read for yourself, get it on Amazon, guys. That's where it's at. And like I said, I'm not a huge reader. This is a quick read. So if I can read it, anyone can read it.
if I can write it, you can read it because it wasn't even going to be a book. It was a couple of notes I jotted down.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, I
I
had fun, and
I
thank you.
did
You were
too.
so kind. You're my first podcast, and
Oh,
only my second Zoom meeting, and the first one was a funeral, and this was way better
oh
than that.
gosh.
So,
Yes. Yes. Well, thank God. I mean, I'm glad that
I
it
mean,
was
I
better
thought
than the
so.
funeral.
I hope the listeners agree. But I thank you for reading my book. I honestly appreciate your time and your open-mindedness to even look at it. And thank you for having me on. And I had a great time. I think you're wonderful. I enjoy your show. And
Oh, thanks. I
thank you.
appreciate it. Yeah, and thanks for coming on. It was fun.
I had fun.
Most people don't change their perspective when they feel safe. They change it when something doesn't sit right anymore. I want to thank Indy for coming on today and saying the quiet parts out loud, for connecting dots that a lot of people are too afraid to even look at. And to everyone listening, you don't have to agree with everything we said today, but you should at least ask yourself why you believe what you believe. Who taught it to you? What was left out? And what happens if you start pulling on those threads? Because once you start questioning, you don't go back. If this episode got your brain spinning, send it to someone who's ready to have their perspective changed, or somebody who definitely isn't. And if you're here for conversations like this, please hit subscribe, leave a review, drop a like, whatever platform you're on. It helps push these conversations further than they're supposed to go. Thank you for listening. Before we close out, I just want to share a quick reminder. The stories told on this podcast are personal experiences and perspectives. They're shared to create awareness and connection, not as medical, legal, or mental health advice. Some of the conversations here focus on abuse, trauma, and other heavy topics, so please take care of yourself while listening. It's always okay to pause, skip an episode, or step away if you need to. And if anything we talked about brings something up to you, we encourage you to reach out to a trusted professional or a support resource. You don't have to carry any of this alone. Thank you for listening.